I just want to find properties, build them from the ground up, lease them up and sell them, and not take on like any more risk or headache of managing these properties after the built.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I'm your host, as always, Yona Weiss. I am here today with another incredible guest. Grateful to have today on the show, Justin Goodin, all the way from Indiana. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you coming down. It's been a while. I appreciate all that you do. You spend a lot of time providing value to the community, especially social media. You know, we connected many years ago and then in person at several conferences. And it's great to have those connections come to life from social media. I know you can probably relate to that. But for our listeners who may not be familiar with you yet, I would love for you to kind of give a little bit of background. Who are you? I know, like everyone else on this show as a guest, the common denominator is that you are in real estate, right? Somehow or another, but kind of found a not so straight path to get there. So I'd love for you to kind of give a little bit of background how you found real estate.
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, today I'm a multifamily developer here in Indianapolis, Indiana. So we're building luxury Class A apartments from the ground up throughout Indiana, and very, laser focused on doing that. Like, we're not looking in Florida, Texas. We're not doing storage hotels. Like, we're just laser focused on Class A ground up development here in Indiana. But it definitely didn't start like that. You know, I grew up on the west side of Indianapolis, first entrepreneur in my family, and I went to a local business school here for finance, studied that, and got my first W-2 job as a multifamily underwriter. And that's like what really sort of like opened my eyes to commercial real estate, apartment investing, you know, going after these larger deals and using investor capital to do so. I was doing some fix and flips. I had some rentals. I was doing that through college as well. But working for the bank, like, really opened my eyes to like these possibilities that you can have in commercial real estate. So back in 2020, left my W-2 job to pursue apartment investing full time. And in the past year, past 5 years, we've done syndications, joint ventures, seller finance deals, became a partner around like 500 multifamily units. And then last year in 2024, I made a decision to transfer into ground up multifamily development. And, many reasons why I made that switch, just better fit for my goals and long-term thinking. Happy to get into that as well. But yeah, started like just doing fix and flips and rentals, worked for a bank as an underwriter, eventually left that to pursue real estate full time. And, today we're building apartments from the ground up.
I mean, that's awesome. Obviously, having a little bit of experience in different aspects of real estate led you to find, focus specifically on development. Now, I'm curious to know what kind of led you to that, because obviously it is a more recent development of, I know you were involved in syndicating. I think when we met a few years ago, you were like deep in the weeds of like underwriting and doing that side of the business for syndications and stuff. So, I mean, what was it that kind of led you to like, new development, Class A apartments in my hometown, in my home market is really the best use of my energies and my skill sets?
Yeah, great question. I mean, for one, there's just so much competition in the value add space. There's so many companies going after the same kind of asset, the typical older value add asset, which I think just like really drove up competition, increased prices, and really just made this a very competitive and inflated space to deal in. So I just made the shift to development because I think there's less competition on the development side, which I think there's more opportunity for like my company to do more volume, more deals. So yeah, this is definitely just an inflated space on the, buying existing multifamily assets. And the fundamentals, I think, on the development side are really strong. So as we're sitting here in 2025, we sort of hit like a peak of supply in 2024 and 2025. And then after that, you were seeing supply or future supply just going off a cliff, meaning there's not a lot of new development, a lot of new units coming online, which I think is just going to put a lot of pressure on rents to grow. Developers that can still do projects today are going to be in an awesome position in the coming years. And yeah, I just think it's a better opportunity to deal in the A-class space, less repair and maintenance issues, better quality tenants, more credit worthy tenants. All these, kind of fundamentals
Hmm.
combined together, I just think made the better shift to focus on development for the long term.
Sure, sure. And I assume that you are doing the development to hold as an asset, right? Is that the business model, or is it as a developer for third parties and doing maybe? I know there are many different business models you can come up with in terms of that, whether you are a contractor and or a partner with others who are building, or is it solely good in development? We are building and holding kind of long term.
Yeah, a couple of things. So like we're the actual developer, meaning we do not have like in-house construction. So we hire out a construction company to build the product for us. And yes, like the developer is sort of like at the, I guess you can call it like the like top of the pyramid. So we're hiring out the construction firm, we're hiring out the civil engineer, the architect, the design team. And the developer is like really there to kind of, manage the budgets, manage all these different companies, all with the end goal of coming together and building the project. So yeah, that's like where my company focuses in. Just kind of like manage all these different companies to come together and build a product. But to answer your second question,
Mhm.
we are not building these projects to hold long term. We are looking to build, lease up, and sell immediately.
Oh, really? Okay.
And for me, like, I just think asset management is just a whole different business model. Again, just like going back to like being laser focused on one thing. I just want to find properties, build them from the ground up, lease them up, and sell them, and not take on like any more risk or headache of managing these properties after the build. So yeah, for us in our business model, we're just looking to get in and out of these properties quickly, multiply our investors' equity as quick as possible, and just build them, lease up, sell them, move on to the next one.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, listen, everyone has a different business model. Obviously, there are developers out there who are building it and holding, but like the
Right.
fact that, you bring on investors, you have a business model that shows them here, we're going to develop these, we're going to lease them up, and we're going to sell them. Obviously, there is a market for selling, Class A apartments leased up in good neighborhoods, good tenant base. Obviously, you're selling to probably a higher echelon of those holders, right? Whether it be REITs or private equity companies that are looking for those kind of Class A apartments, right? You're not going to have these Class B and C syndicators who are going to be coming in and buying those off of you, brand new apartments, right?
More than likely. I mean, yeah, it's a very competitive asset when you go to
Hmm.
sell it. I mean, a brand new property, brand new appliances, brand new everything.
Right.
So yeah, it's very competitive to like more like those larger institutional type companies who could maybe afford to not require so much of a big yield.
Hmm.
They're just looking to, park their capital, earn a coupon every year and just hold it for the long term. So yeah, correct.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in a sense, you are like, I mean, I guess you can call it this, whatever you want, but in a sense, you're syndicating deals just from the ground up, as opposed to, syndicating deals that are already built, right?
That's correct.
I
Yeah,
mean, so
still
it's
doing the syndication method, still working with investors, correct.
so similar. I mean, business model in terms of the underwriting, correct? I mean, you're just adding more factors and time to, different line items and time to the module.
Correct. Which I think like why like back when I mentioned like I think there's so much opportunity in development. I think there's just a lot less investors willing to put up that work that to learn this stuff in the beginning to get these projects off the ground. I mean, quite
Mhm.
literally. But I mean, I'm working on a project now where I made an offer on the land about 11 months ago, and we'd gone through the entire process, like rezoning, submitting a PUD to the city, working through approvals,
Mhm.
buying the land, working with the bank, raising capital, and we're just now starting the project, on track like 12 months later. So I
Like,
think, there's a lot less investors willing to put in that time, that upfront work to even get a project off the ground, which again, I think just go back to the opportunity. I just think it leaves more opportunity for developers willing to do that.
sure. It also, I mean, you're dealing with a different, maybe not necessarily a different type of investor, but someone who wants to diversify, meaning you're going to have your capital locked up for, a minimum X number of years, right? So whether it be 12, 24, 36 months, you're not going to see a penny of, cash flow or anything like that from that. So it's a different investment model. You're obviously looking to get those returns on the appreciation and the turnaround of that project. But I mean, when you talk about 11 months later, I mean, are you actually just breaking ground now, or is it still in the development, pre-development stages?
We are planning to break ground next month.
Okay.
So yeah, we're in April 2025 now, but yeah, I've been working on this project for like the last 11 months. So,
Yeah.
and I will clarify, we're not raising capital in the beginning. So we're using all of our own capital, our own funds to go through this entire process throughout those 11 months and only bringing in investors when we have a project that's like ready to go, shovel ready. We, have the bank lined up. We need to close it in 60 days. So like we're only, getting investors involved when we have a project that is ready to go, but we're putting our capital, basically at risk up front to, even get it close to the closing table.
Yeah. And that's huge, especially for investors who see that you're you're not just putting the effort. I mean, you're putting your money where your mouth is. You believe in the project enough that you're willing to risk. I mean, and that's the biggest risk factor, I believe, in that time. Because like you said, it could take 3 months, it could take 10 months, and who knows? Because a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with different municipalities, they're going to have different bureaucracy and, red tape and things like that that's going to take to get through. That being said, I mean, obviously it helps being local, someone that you can, you can go in, you can sit down, you can meet the people working on the city, planning or what have you. Is that, I mean, you have someone on your team, or is that something that you're actually doing yourself, like going downtown to these places and meeting with, the board or the city council and things like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, at least as of right now, yeah, it's all me. Going in and meeting these municipalities, talking about their goals, their vision for the city, coming together on a partnership. Yeah, it's all me for right now.
That's pretty cool. And you get a ton of experience with that. But not only that, you get to feel it out. Obviously, if you find a great city or great market, then you get a relationship with, the city planners and things like that. It's going to be much easier the second time around when you find a piece of land, right? And especially if you know that there's demand in this town or in this, submarket where there are people moving there, there's, jobs to be had, there's demand for new housing, which I'd love for you to talk about that, because obviously you're focusing on your submarkets in your local area, but this housing shortage of new development. Talk to me about that and and was that a big factor in focusing local, or was it, more just being present in the vicinity?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I mean, like you mentioned, like being here local and doing projects in your own local state. I mean, a good thing about that is like, all the good areas, all the bad areas to invest. So, or not to invest, but I like being within at least 2 hours driving distance of my projects. So if I was doing projects in like other states, that's like a really long drive just to go check out the project. But these are not just like projects you could start and just like, hey, go hire the construction company, trust them to get it done. I'll check on it every once in a while, but it's not like that at all. Like you are actively out there every week, multiple times a week, watching things, overseeing things, verifying work has been done, taking pictures, following up with the GC. So it's not by any means a hands-off investment that you can just go out there and hire a contractor to do this for you. It's still like a very hands-on role. And yeah, speaking back to why I think now is an awesome time to be a developer, just speaking on the supply issues we have. But I mean, back in 2020, 2021, when interest rates were historically low, we saw just a huge amount of projects start, a huge amount of new development projects start. That's because the market was on fire, cost of capital was cheap, interest rates were low. So you saw this huge wave of properties start the process of being developed. And now that we're in, 2024, 2025, we're seeing those projects that take, between 1 and 3 years to get built, come online. We're seeing that wave of new developments come online, all these new units come online. And as you know, and everybody knows, like the market is shifted, the market's changed,
Right.
interest rates are higher, everything about the market has changed. So it's a lot more complicated and difficult to get deals to pencil out with these interest rates, with how the costs are now. So now we are seeing the supply just basically go off a cliff. We see some supply come online in 2025, a little bit in 2026. But after that, the supply is just going off a cliff, and there's not a lot of new delivery that we were expecting, which, yes, going back to that point, I just think now is an awesome time to be a developer. If you can start projects now, if you can get projects to pencil, I think those projects and those properties are just going to be in fantastic positions in the next coming years.
For sure. And I mean, what is the general timeline that you give yourself from, finding a project, buying the land to completion? I mean, obviously there's a window, there's a ton of factors that you can't control, but I mean, best case scenario and kind of worst case scenario. I mean, you can't really tell what the worst would be, but because you never know what factors would come up.
I mean, everything is different. So it could be, you could start a project in 3 months after finding it. You could start a project in a year. But I mean, best case scenario, you come across a opportunity, you get started with it 6 months later. Your construction will most likely take between 14 and 18 months, at least like for the size projects we're doing.
Mhm.
And then you spend 4 to 6 months leasing it up, and then maybe sell it late year two, year three is when you're out. So that's
Gotcha.
like best case scenario.
So, I mean, in terms of the timeline, not too different from like your standard, syndication where you're talking about like a 3 to 5 year on a purchase. So, not too different from that. I would say potentially a shorter timeline if you can get things, the ball rolling faster and get things done smoother, right?
Correct. That's a good point. Yeah.
I'm curious to know because, like I mentioned earlier, in your experience leading up to kind of leaving your W-2, getting into the real estate world, I know you spent a number of years doing, the purchase side of syndications, the underwriting, and working with other
Mhm.
syndicators. Obviously, during the boom, during the time, after 2018, when there was just like interest rates were extremely low, and everyone, their mother was buying deals across the Sun Belt and everywhere else. What, if any, if you could share like any experiences that you've had that kind of shaped your way to do business, or things that maybe you saw when working with other syndicators? I know you work with several. That kind of like, this is something, because we always want to learn like what to do, but we also want to learn what not to do.
Of course. I think, I mean, yeah, like the biggest thing that just comes to my head is having like a laser focused approach. So I see other companies that are buying like all these different kind of asset classes and all these different markets. Like they're buying in Florida, they're buying in Texas, buying in Oklahoma, all these different states. And it's so difficult to effectively manage all these assets in all these different states, all these different marketing conditions. So that's just one thing. I think like if you're really wanting to scale efficiently, do things right, I just think it makes more sense to pick a niche and stick in that. So pick your market, pick the asset class you wanna go into, and stay like laser focused on that one niche and strategy. Now, of course, like there's an argument to be made if you have a large team, you can expand out in different states. But I mean, that takes a really large team, I think, to be able to do that effectively. I mean, number two is just, picking smart debt terms. I mean, there's so many properties that were, and I mean, I'll probably sound like a broken record, but so many properties that were financed with floating rate bridge debts, back when rates were 2 or 3%. I mean, everybody thought those rates were just going to stay like that for forever. And then when the market changes, when the rates come up, all those properties are basically just underwater and can, not even support the debt service. So we've seen that in my properties within my company, we've only done fixed rate debt. So every syndication I've been a part of, it's always been with fixed rate debt, even on our construction loans. We're working on our second development deal right now, and we're going to put a fixed interest rate construction loan on it. Now, like we're in 2025, like everybody and their mom is talking about how rates are going to come down. But that's like what they said about 18 months ago when we started our first development deal. They said all the rates are going to come down. They've kind of like stayed where they've been at for the past 18 months. So I think if the deal works at, set percentage, there's already so many other variables and risk you have to worry about in these deals you do. If you can take interest rate risk off the table by just fixing your debt, I mean, it's just one less variable that you have to worry about. So those are a couple of things that I think that other syndicators should be, pay more attention to.
And you hear it all the time. I think I remember in Joe Fairless's book, the best ever syndication book. He talks about like 3 principles of how to be successful, and one of those things is long-term debt. Although we did see, him and others who were very ambitious and thinking, oh, I can get kind of floating rate bridge debt and then transition into that long-term debt later on. And when you kind of mess with the fundamentals, to try to make more money, it's going to come to bite you. As we saw, as you mentioned, there are many people out there who got fixed floating rate bridge loans, and when the interest rate shot up like it did in 2022, 3, people are underwater, and unfortunately, thousands of investors have lost money and been burned by things like that. Yeah, I mean, it's good to have that experience, because experience is the best teacher. That you've actually seen that you've seen what's good, what works, what doesn't work. How do you focus on building a team, because that's a big part as well. You obviously were part of teams, decided to, hey, I'm entrepreneur, want to go off on my own and do my own thing now, and then start building your own team. Like, what are you looking for?
I mean, find people with the same goals, same aspirations, same
Hmm.
values that you have. Find people that you can, know, like, and trust. Don't just like start a company or work with anybody. I think a lot of people in this business jump into partnerships without actually knowing how people work, how they
Yeah.
operate. But I just think you spend more time just, finding like the right people to partner with.
It does take time, obviously, and it takes time to
Yes.
really get to know someone as well. It takes time to get to know someone because you may think you know them, but spend some time with them, do a deal or two, and kind of walk it through the good and the bad and the ugly, which comes out only when when going gets tough. You see what actually happens where people are. I mean, it's
Exactly
fascinating.
right.
Fascinating to see. Well, Justin, I want to transition now what we call the final four. So these are four questions that I like to ask all my guests. First question for you is going to be, what is the worst job that you ever had?
Worst job I ever had was probably during high school, working at Steak and Shake as a server. Just
Hmm.
one thing I did not like: cleaning tables, taking orders, getting hot and sweaty, and just running around all night. Yeah, working as a server was not my cup of tea at all.
I think a lot of people have that experience when they're younger, like working in retail or fast food or something like that, that just
Correct.
totally turns them off of that aspect and turns them on to what they actually want to do and want to focus on. So that's amazing. Second question is going to be, what is a book you've read that's giving you a paradigm shift?
Yeah, stay sane in an unsane world. Greg Harden. It's a really good kind of like mindset and motivation book. Greg Harden was the like mindset coach for Tom Brady.
Hmm.
So highly recommend that book as well. Really good read.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes for anyone who wants to check that out. Sounds like a great read itself. I haven't read it myself yet, but definitely add it to the book list. Third question is going to be, what is a skill or talent that you would like to learn? And this could be anything.
Yeah, a unique thing that comes to mind is I wish I could learn how to, I guess, like more accurately talk to people or convey in a way that I tap into like their subconscious mind. If that makes sense. So going like to the psychology factor, like finding ways to sort of like tap into like their inner subconscious, like we can really like speak to them in a way where you can just like sort of like tap into that inner subconscious mind is the best way I can put it. Wish I knew like more things about how to do that.
I mean, skilled communication is something that,
Communication, correct.
yeah, no, I mean, I think there is a lot of psychology, especially when you're dealing with investors and dealing with, people
Exactly.
in general in the business world. There's a lot of psychology to selling. There's psychology to developing best communication skills for that. So I can see that. I don't know
Correct.
exactly. I wish I had something to kind of to point you to, because I feel like everyone needs to work on that. Like we're
Yeah.
always constantly building those skills. So, but nothing really comes to mind at the moment. Sometimes it does, and if I did, I would put that forward. But yeah, I mean that's definitely something that is needed. So good luck with that. Fourth and final question, Justin, is, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, just having time freedom. The money's great. Money will always going to come if you do things right, but just having time freedom, I think, is the biggest asset or biggest achievement you could have. Just having a day where you can, or a life where you can wake up when you want, do what you want, and spend time how you want. Yeah, I mean, time freedom has always just been my ultimate, just number one goal.
Yeah, I mean, being an entrepreneur, there's not much time freedom at the beginning when you're building. I mean, obviously you have the ability to make your own schedule, but most people like to put in as much time as they can in the early stages into the business, to kind of build it. So it's difficult, but I definitely hear what you're saying. I mean, that really is truly successful if you can really, do whatever you want with your time and choose to spend it, to make the biggest impact in your own life and others' lives. So love that answer. It definitely resonates with me as well. So appreciate that. And finally, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can just type in my name, Justin Goodin, Goodin. Also go to goodindevelopment.com. You can contact me there.
All right. We will make sure to put all that in the show notes, and appreciate you coming on the show. Been a lot of fun kind of getting to know what you're working on, getting to know the whole development process. Very fascinating because there's so much that goes into it. And we just really scratched the surface here today. But for our listeners who want to find out more, definitely check out Justin. He puts out a ton of great content about the development process, about construction, about multifamily investing in general. So make sure to follow him. And as I say to all our listeners, whether I am a guest on a podcast or the host of the Weiss Advice, when you do connect, and I highly encourage you to make that connection, take 10 seconds and write a little note. hey, Justin, heard you on Weiss Advice or what have you. It really goes a long way and really starts the conversation. And no one, I can't say no one, but I personally don't really like to just have followers who I don't even know who they are. I like to have connections. I like to have people that we know, and appreciate everyone out there for listening. And until next time, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.